Alright, it's been a little while since my last video. I want to make this one count, and hopefully I will cover a few topics in as little time as possible. Before I start, I did want to say that if you are not getting notifications, or you've been unsubscribed from the channel, or you've otherwise fallen out of touch with this and you do like the content here and you've been either just a watcher or reader or correspondent with me for a while, please subscribe to me on one of the other sites that are behind me, especially BitChute and Library for the videos. And I do hope in the future to start doing some exclusives on those that will hopefully be on some of the more spicy topics. Getting to today. Now, those of you that are from Ohio, you probably know that, or from the Midwest to be sure. I mean, if you're from Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, you know that we've had this issue where the Big Ten is not going to have a football season as of right now, and that is making a lot of our brown eyes blue here because I would say that in every one of those states, college football is the most unifying sport that there is, especially, look, I know that in Pennsylvania it is. I know, there's a lot of Penn State fans. There isn't really another powerful football team in Pennsylvania in terms of, besides, obviously, there's the pro level teams, but not everybody is into pro football. Here in Ohio, we have two awful football teams. So, of course, people are going to be more interested in Ohio State. And it's a unifying team for people who are from the opposite corners of the state, Cincinnati and Cleveland, where they can both support the Buckeyes. I personally don't support either the Browns or the Bengals. So the Buckeyes, to be frank, are the only local or semi-local football or any other sports team that I really support, because most of the other teams that I've traditionally supported are from out of state, such as the Chicago Cubs and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you go to some states like Michigan, it's probably the same issue. You have two major football teams over there in college football, Michigan State and Michigan, and neither of them are going to be playing. So that's a deep and painful loss for some of the people who live in that state, who are used to either tuning in on Saturdays and watching their team. I personally can't even tune in on Saturdays. I keep the Sabbath, but I definitely always follow the Buckeyes. And in fact, I'm an even bigger college basketball fan. Now, this past weekend, there was a football game between Austin Peay State University, which is in, I believe, Clarksville, Tennessee, and Central Arkansas. And the fact is that if you would have just checked tweets and articles from the past few months, there was a major consensus among the sports media that there would be no football season, college or pro, that it would all be canceled and everything. People were saying that there wouldn't be baseball, Major League Baseball. They were saying that there wouldn't be NBA, and all of those things happened. And if you are a follower of Outkick the Coverage, which is the show featuring, well, the host of the show is Clay Travis. It is on Fox Sports Radio. You know that it's been basically a feud between him and a few other select sports media people, and the vast majority of sports media who have been saying, well, this isn't going to happen, and we can just pretty much forget about the sports for the rest of 2020. And instead, we have seen sports come back. Now, besides that, so what we have to talk about as well is the political posturing that's been happening. So you have LeBron James essentially pooping on the entire party and wearing a vote or die t-shirt today, which is just one of the many different idiotic things that he's said this year. And don't get me wrong, I think that it's fine. I think it's fine for pro athletes to have opinions, but as of late, most of LeBron James' public pronouncements haven't had to do with the game of basketball. And it is just astounding how delusional these people are. Look, the NBA season was cut short and postponed for a few months due to COVID-19, but none of these guys lost their jobs. A lot of people who have regular jobs, like myself, did lose our jobs and we're not getting them back. And we may never be able to recover what we lost during the coronavirus. There's people who lost their lives during the coronavirus. Not all of them, by the way, because of the illness. There's now been a report that was released that said only I think it was only 6% of the fatalities attributed to the coronavirus actually were connected to it or actually were without any comorbidities. That's actually what happened. So of the 180,000 people who lost their lives having the coronavirus, only 6% did not have another illness that may have played a hand, may have had a hand in what happened to them, which was their untimely demise. So this notion that LeBron James, now that his basketball team is back, the LA Lakers, and playing basketball in the bubble, now that this is happening, let's like think about this for a second. He lobbied for there to be a polling center at the Staples Center in LA, which, if you don't forget this, they said that they had to play in the bubble because it would not be safe for players and fans for there to be an audience in attendance. Okay, and I know people who are in all sorts of industries, performance arts. They might, we have a performing arts center right around the corner from where I live, that their entire season was canceled, no performances whatsoever, and now suddenly it is safe for there to be a voting center at the Staples Center, which previously was considered to be unsafe for actual games. That's why it's so stupid. And meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, teams are flying from city to city. And let's just put that aside for a second. LeBron James and his idiotic pronouncements about police violence and about how he feels fear all the time going around in the streets. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. This is a guy who filmed, if you don't remember this, I believe it was he had an Uber commercial. This is how retarded they think. Now I'm going to get flagged for the video, but this is how ridiculous they think that we are, that we would believe that LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Kerry Champion, formerly of First Take on ESPN, that they would be riding around Akron in an Uber, right? That in an Uber ride. That Kerry Champion would be giving them an Uber ride. This is how ridiculous this entire professional sports opinionated sector is. And I would say it's not surprising, therefore, that many people are nostalgic. And Clay Travis talks about this a lot, but it really is true. If you watch the documentary Last Dance, people are very nostalgic about the mid-'90s Chicago Bulls franchise because it was, especially with Michael Jordan, because it was a basketball team that was all about the basketball, was all about the pageantry of the game. It was all about how the NBA itself at the time was a show that lived on its own merits, as opposed to what LeBron James has turned the NBA into, which is a portal to more social commentary that you can get anywhere else. So that is what's going on with professional sports. And moreover, we have had this issue with the Big Ten where they decided. So remember, these pro athletes are not going to have any sort of drop off in their wealth. Obviously, they might have it long term because of ratings problems, but because of coronavirus, they are going to be able to tide themselves over. And many of them already did get significant paydays in their past. However, for the future college athlete, and I know some of you might say, well, who cares? I have a job. I'm just, the coat check guy at a hotel or something. But follow me for a second. These college athletes who, in many cases, have committed to a certain amount of time at these colleges, they are hoping to get a bid to be drafted in the pros. People like Trevor Lawrence, I think, don't necessarily have to fear this, but Justin Fields of Ohio State definitely has to fear not getting drafted next year or getting drafted lower because he couldn't play the 2020 season. These people are being cheated out of their best chance for a career in sports, and that is a privilege. I get it, but it's a privilege that not many people even have the chance to taste. And I think it is definitely cheating those people as, as unimportant as you might think it is. It is definitely something that many of them sacrificed a lot of time and in some cases their health in order to get to, because some of them go through obviously very career defining injuries. These are in many cases not safe sports. They're not sports where you can necessarily hope to regain all of your function later if you suffer one of these grotesque injuries. And if in baseball, there's people who end up having to undergo Tommy John surgery. In football, there's people with knee injuries, people with hip injuries, concussions, and I'm sure in basketball there are certain other injuries that are attendant to it. And yet, what is happening right now is that there is this groundswell of support for continuing the Big Ten season. Now, there was a meeting today, if you're into politics, you might know about this, between Donald Trump and the president of the Big Ten, Kevin Warren. And apparently people are trying to say, well, it was the coronavirus that has postponed the Big Ten season. But the reality is you have other conferences that have said, well, we don't really have a problem playing football. The ACC, which stretches all the way from upstate New York, where Syracuse is, to the tip of the Florida Peninsula, where the University of Miami is, they're having college football. The SEC, which is the most elite conference in college football, let's admit it, Big Ten guys, I'm a Big Ten guy, but the majority of better teams in the Big Ten or in the NCAA are SEC teams. You have Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, LSU won the national title last year. Georgia, most of them are in the SEC. The SEC is coming back. So Aaron Rupar is saying, well, it's not the pandemic. Well, it isn't the pandemic because here in the Midwest, we have not had this carnage that people were predicting due to the coronavirus that was mainly confined to the coast, especially the East Coast. It's largely passed by the Midwest, except in Michigan, which had the most draconian lockdown. So these people are what Clay Travis calls the Corona Bros. And Barstool Sports, which is another dissenting sports blog website, is saying, is Donald Trump going to save the Big Ten football season? And it says, when this tweet came across my timeline this morning, I was confused but intrigued. Trump tweeted, I had a very productive conversation with Kevin Warren, commissioner of the Big Ten Conference, about immediately starting up Big Ten football. Would be good, great for everyone, players, fans, country, on the 1 yard line. And then it says, was this just for Trump's campaign? Was my hope just being used for Trump to put up his chances in battleground states, or is he actually trying to save the Big Ten football season? And then it says Big Ten's call with the White House was very positive. A return is now on the table thanks to White House willing to distribute rapid tests. It turns out that we might have something here. The fight to bring Big Ten football has reached the White House. Sources with direct knowledge of the situation confirmed to Letterman Row that government officials reached out to Commissioner Kevin Warren on Monday night to set up a call designed to see if there was anything President Donald Trump could do to help the league resume the postponed fall season. The primary objective for the Tuesday conference call, according to sources, was to discuss the availability of testing, which is believed to be one of the biggest looming hurdles for the Big Ten when it comes to planning any sort of return to action. The whole situation has been summed up perfectly by Barrett Sally. The Big Ten tried to be a trendsetter with no self-awareness about where it stands, postponed the season too soon, and is now meeting with the president in a last-ditch effort to save the season. Yikes. School presidents and Commissioner Kevin Warren should be embarrassed. The Big Ten wanted to be first. That is probably thanks to the high-quality institutions that belong to their conference. Michigan men and Northwestern alums wanted to lead the brigade to cancel the season. They thought everyone would bow down and follow them because they are smart. Look at their U.S. News and World Report rate rankings. Turns out those other conferences didn't. And guess what happened? It really hurt the Big Ten's reputation as a football conference. The SEC is head and shoulders the best conference in college football, but the Big Ten was right there with them over the past few years. Their early decision may set them back in regards to finances, recruiting, etc. I think over the past couple of weeks, the Big Ten has realized they may have made a mistake, and they are now trying to fix it. Lucky for them, it's an election year, and their conference is home to a bunch of battleground states. And then there's this tweet from the Mississippi Department of Transportation. It says, "Be like the Big Ten, stay home and avoid gathering." So the truth is that this has become a political football, and that's this is ironically one of the best uses of that idiom. The fact is that the battleground states are largely places like Michigan and Ohio. Well, Ohio less so, but Michigan, Pennsylvania, and also Wisconsin. So there have actually been ads run by Joe Biden that blamed Donald Trump for the sports stoppage. So that is something that the Biden campaign decided, we're going to hit him over the non-resumption of football this season. And I'll let you watch that ad before I comment on it. If it'll play.
Good weather by opening day standard. We're going to be in the 60s. Enjoy the game. And now, to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem.
So this ad played in many of these states, and I don't watch TV, so I didn't see it, and I also have membership in Google Play Music, so I don't get it on YouTube either. But the fact is that I think most people who are clear-headed know that it was but for Donald Trump's pressure that these sports leagues decided to cancel their seasons, specifically the Big Ten. Donald Trump has been the biggest supporter of resuming both regular business as well as entertainment since the coronavirus shutdown started. And for people to come now and say, well, it's his fault that it's been shut down. It's his fault that the pandemic got out of control. It's his fault that all of these other issues attendant to what happened with the pandemic have affected the general, conduct of society. It just isn't true, because you've had a lot of these. It's not as if, again, the Big Ten is one of the few college football conferences that decided to cancel its games. The rest of them, largely, except for the Pac-10, I believe, Pac-12, decided to go ahead and restart their seasons with more limited schedules. So you even have Peter Thamel, who's considered a Corona bro by people like Clay Travis and the same crowd of people. He says why President Trump's big tweets aren't going to make a difference. President Trump inserted himself squarely into the Big Ten's plan to return to play on Tuesday, setting up the most intriguing matchup we may see in the league this fall. It's the United States president lined up against the Big Ten presidents, a battle of wills and political allegiances, all disingenuously put forth in an attempt to capture the hearts and minds of voters in swing states. So in the first paragraph, the Mel actually goes out and admits it, that it's the presidents of the colleges that are engaged in this political fight. He's not even trying to hide that. It says Trump tweeted on Tuesday afternoon that he spoke to embattled Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren about immediately starting up Big Ten football. He added that the decision was on the 1-yard line. To say multiple sources denied the notion of Big Ten playing immediately would not be strong enough. The sources heartily laughed at it. The notion of playing around Thanksgiving is an embryonic discussion, and there's a desire among coaches to start as early as possible, but immediately is in another universe, especially with multiple Big Ten teams not even having players on campus right now. Trump's transparent setting up of Warren as a political punching bag this fall to court votes in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan is so obvious that the only surprise is that he didn't do it sooner. So let's remember how he's framing it. Joe Biden has already used this as a political issue by claiming that it is Trump that canceled the season. However, and this is important. However, he's not even mentioning that, and he's saying that Trump is using Kevin Warren as a political punching bag, right? So this is what's so ridiculous about people who ignore the actual circumstances that are going on here and try to make this just about a battle between Trump and the college football presidents, or the college presidents themselves, as opposed to just admitting that there is no reason why the Big Ten is shut down. That he set up Warren for future abuse with a set of, quote, alternative facts is straight from Trump's dog-eared playbook. So again, he's making a sports issue into a political issue and then claiming that it's Trump doing that. The notion of President Trump getting on the phone with Warren arose in a call with Big Ten coaches on Monday night. The Big Ten confirmed the conversation and called it, quote, productive, but added that it will return at the appropriate time. The conversation between the president and Warren was arranged in part to see if the Big Ten could have access to rapid testing. The Trump administration announced last week that it will deploy 150 million rapid tests in 2020. That access to testing, at least in theory, could answer some of the medical reservations that the Big Ten's medical doctors had before the season. But that's just a theory. Remember, this is a league that didn't feel comfortable going to full contact football practices earlier this summer. So let's just unpack that for a second. Thamel is claiming that it is sound medical decision making that that the Big Ten is not resuming football, even though the people playing it are in the 18 to 22 age group, and the vast majority, 80% of the people within that group of people who were solely fatalities due to coronavirus were in their elderly stages. So he thinks that that's the sound medical track to take, right? That's how ridiculous this is. Read into the Big Ten's defiantly bland statement and you'll see the return to competition task force and the phrases safest and healthiest, all of which serve as yellow lights to thinking the league can speed back to playing a mainstream schedule this fall. There are medical minds that need to be changed, and the president's attempting to keep their campuses upright amid a pandemic that would have to change their minds too. And the Big Ten presidential 11-3 vote that emerged in court documents on Monday serves as a reminder about just how steep the decision-making reversal will be for the Big Ten moving forward. I think Northwestern is keen on reversing its presidential vote after announcing on Friday it will be all remote classes for freshmen and sophomores. That's another thing. What is the idea of having all of these people? I was in college for a time too. Okay, and I lived with my dad for a while, and then I moved out by myself. But what's the idea behind having people learn from their home as being more safe? Because if you're on a college campus and you're in your own dorm room, and then you could be spreading the virus among people, but the likelihood that those people are from the more vulnerable groups is much lower. Despite the presidential bluster, here's what really matters for the Big Ten decisions. They're not going to be made by the coaches at Nebraska, Ohio State, and Michigan who've made clear that they want to play immediately. It's also not going to be Warren, who through these clumsy last few weeks hasn't magically mustered the power to make wholesale decisions for the conference. So the matchup to watch for football to start in late November at the earliest becomes president on presidents, the White House versus the college leaders. To label all of the Big Ten presidents as liberal wouldn't be accurate. Purdue President Mitch Daniels is a former Republican governor of Indiana, but he voted not to play 3 weeks ago and shows why this issue transcends politics. The fact is that these college presidents can reverse their decisions, and they can see that when this week, I believe, all of these college football conferences that have not decided to postpone are going to be back. I believe that Alabama is going to be coming back this week. Let me just check the schedules here. I could be wrong. I don't want to speak too soon. So I'm actually using Peter Thamel's own website, Yahoo Sports, and you actually have tomorrow you have Central Arkansas playing UAB, and you also have South Alabama playing Southern Miss, and then you have on I believe it's Friday, you have Eastern Kentucky playing Marshall, and you have Middle Tennessee playing Army. And then you also have Southern Miss playing Texas State, and you have Houston Baptist playing North Texas, and you have Arkansas State playing Memphis, and you have Stephen A. F. Austin playing UTEP, and you have BYU playing Navy, and then later, so you have Kansas playing, let me see here. Oh, a lot of these are postponed. So you will have college football pretty soon, pretty damn soon. Okay, you're going to have also, on the 10th, you're going to have the Miami Hurricanes coming back. You're also going to have the TCU Horned Frogs, that's Texas Christian, and Southern Miss playing. You're going to have Syracuse and North Carolina. So there's really, and Syracuse, by the way, is in New York State. So I don't want to hear any more of this bullshit about it not being safe. So he just keeps going on, and it says there's only one fail-safe prediction here. The Big Ten tweets will keep coming from the White House. Let me tell you what's going to happen if there is no Big Ten football, regardless of what Trump says. Okay, if there is no Big Ten football, you know who's going to get the blame for that? It is going to be the college presidents. It is going to be Kevin Warren. It is going to be the Big Ten. And the truth is that Peter Thamel himself, it's not as if he got his job from being this amazing sports analyst, okay? This is a guy who's been laid off from plenty of these other, publications. He's now at Yahoo. He used to be at Sports Illustrated. And he's part of that declining legacy media class that has dominated sports for so many years. And yet they can't adapt to the new reality of the fact that sports media isn't as important as it used to be, that sports fans pretty much are just as insightful about sports as some of these so-called journalists. And more than that, he actually predicted, Thamel said that there would be no college football. It says, I have to admit, so this is from Peter Heck, and it's in the Resurgent, and it says, still for months, the American sports fan has been treated to the relentless drumbeat of negativity, promising that Saturday would never come. In mid-July, Yahoo Sports ran a piece by Peter Thamel that preemptively nuked the entire college football season. The rampant pessimism about the possibility of playing football in the fall of 2020 has spiraled to fatalism. Take a deep breath and begin to get comfortable with the idea that there's virtually no chance of playing college football in any recognizable form this fall. Start digesting the notion that the next time we see a college football game could be in more than 13 months, as the sport remains the most unlikely of all the major sports to execute a successful return. The fact is that Peter Thamel has been wrong about so many different predictions over the past few months about the coronavirus that it's almost as if he should be forcibly recused from commenting on this and just be told, stick to the actual games, stop being this would-be public health advocate, just stick to commenting on football. Just the same way that people want LeBron James to stick to playing basketball because he isn't more insightful about actual political issues. And that's really the problem here. You know, like I am sure that some of you have been wondering how come, you know, of all the different events that have happened over the past couple of weeks, the RNC and the DNC and the various police shootings and the rioting in Kenosha and the shooting in Portland, how come I haven't come out with more videos? And the truth of the matter is that on all of those issues, yeah, I could come out and commentate and give my own personal perspective on all of those. But I think you already have a lot of those same perspectives from other people on YouTube or on the internet or various writers or maybe from a podcast that you listen to. The fact of the matter is, though, that I like to sometimes focus more on things that I can give a little bit more of a unique perspective and new information. If I just commented on every shooting and on every different event that comes out there and just focused on it laser like and just got deep into the weeds on them, then yeah, I would say I'd be very specialized. But there are people who have deep specialization in that on their YouTube channels that don't seem to be doing very well anyway. And there's already people who have major audiences that do it. So I think that's it for today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on all of the other media sites that you see above, the social media sites. If you're watching me on YouTube, subscribe. Also on BitChute, Minds.com, Subscribe, Star, Gab, Library, and Parler. And I will talk to you later.